Okay, fantastic. Welcome, everyone. Whether you are joining us from your morning, your noon, or your evening, this is Inspire, Innovate, and Ignite Conversations That Count. And we are a panel of fascinating entrepreneurial women and who are bringing our expertise and our wisdom to our conversation tonight. And it's going to be a really personal conversation, which I kind of love personal conversations. Our topic tonight is how do busy entrepreneurs relax, rejuvenate, and focus frazzled nerves? Now, we have a panel. They are hand-picked experts. They are women of power in their own right who've got very interesting life stories. And I'm going to ask each one of you in turn to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about you. So, Jackie, how would you like to start? But you have to unmute first. There you go.
That's a good point. And fun because I usually go last. So
I know.
The entrepreneurial journey, according to Jackie, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was a single mom. And at the end of the month, I could either pay daycare or I could pay the rent. I couldn't pay both. And I got lucky. Someone suggested that I start my own business in my own home and be home with my kids. I'm an accidental entrepreneur. It's a roller coaster, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So that's the short version of the entrepreneurial, and we'll get into the frizzled and frazzled part. Suffice it to say, the roller coaster gets more exciting, and now I not only own my own business, but I'm also the director of the Teen Suicide Prevention Society, a nominated contestant for a reality TV show in that role, and part of a song that was written for our mission that might go Grammy. So life has gotten very, very exciting, and the invitations to be overwhelmed are numerous. So I'm delighted to be able to come here where there's no pressure at all.
I am thrilled to have you, Jackie. You're going to be a lot of fun tonight, and I'm looking forward to what you have to share. You got wonderful life experience. Lisa DePamphilis, would you like to join in and tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us a wave and let people know where you are.
Hi,
Hey, there she is.
Yeah, well, so I've been an entrepreneur for, well, most of my life, although I have worked professionally, and I've been fortunate enough in my professional career to have been able to really create my own roles and do my own thing, which, really was precious. So I am an intuitive mentor, a channel, and an evolutionary leader. And I like to think that I bridge the worlds between spirituality and practicality. And I work with mainly women to help them come home to their truth and create success. And I bring my 30 plus years of professional experience as an innovative leader and a business consultant and mentor and trainer and therapist. And I merged that with the last 15 years, I've been doing a deep dive into the ancient mystery school teachings. So I bring that and my lifelong metaphysical philosophy into my work. And I've got, done the best-selling author thing, speaker, all that good stuff, facilitator. And I think this is a great topic. I know when I was working full-time and trying to start my business back in 2010, it was super hectic when I had my kids at home. So things change, and we'll get all into that. So thank you.
Wonderful. Oh, you are bringing such a woven tapestry of experiences and choices. I'm sure that there have been times when you really have needed to rejuvenate. So we're going to hear all about that. Thank you, Lisa. Cortney Whitebay, how would you like to jump in and tell us about yourself?
Hey, so I am a traveling, if you can't tell, I'm a traveling somatic business coach and personal trainer. And I started in my field, which was exercise physiology, when I realized in college, like my last semester of college, I was pre-med, and I was just so fascinated with everything, science and body and how everything is all connected. and I failed biochemistry twice. I thought it was the coolest thing since sliced bread, and I just could not do it. But when I got into exercise physiology, everything clicked. And I realized that I really learned in a different way. I learned from like, okay, here's your body, now go inside of it, and here's how everything works and the reactions and the cells and the chemicals and all the things. But I didn't really work from atoms and chemicals up. So I found it, I found XPhys, and I loved it because it combined all the things I was really fascinated and interested in a way that I could actually make sense of it. And so I really started out very science-based, very research-based, and through my career, I've realized that doesn't, I mean, it works, but I'm going to go ahead and say like that doesn't really work with people. It's still fascinating. I still love it so much, but I'm realizing that what's really needed is the wisdom, and the wisdom we've known for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And science is just starting to catch up to that a little bit. So I am really enjoying bridging the gap for people who are not ready to do the spiritual side of things. They're not really ready for the mind-body connection. They're not really ready to understand that they can create anything through their thoughts and their beliefs and all that kind of stuff. And I'm still struggling with that a little bit. And my hope is to be the bridge between, you know, I always want to say the regular people, and maybe you have a better way for me to say this, the masses. I want to be the bridge between the masses who are still like staunch science people into the realm of, I suppose it's really quantum physics for them, but into the spiritual side of things, and seeing that our physics, our quantum physics, our neuro, our neuro, what is it called? Anyway, the science of neurology and all of that is really just starting to catch up to what ancient wisdom has known forever and ever and ever. And so then to help people with their physical being and start to teach them that how their emotions are going to impact their physical body and help them heal and get better, but also to then guide them to the next light worker who's going to go beyond that into the more spiritual realm that I don't really exist in quite so much, at least not for work. So what I do also, I call somatic business coaching, and that's where I do personal training and business coaching at the same time, because all of the things are just really opening up at that point. And it works with business, it works with just life. And it's just really fascinating to see the ideas that people come up with when they're moving their bodies and they're clearing their minds and they're unraveling themselves and relaxing. And it's just really, really cool. So that's a little bit about me.
Beautiful. And I think what you offer is very, very valuable, and it's only going to get more valuable over time. So thank you for joining us. LeNae Goolsby, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself as well, please?
Sure. Thank you for having me. So my husband and I are the founders of Infinite Health Integrative Medicine Center. We have 2 clinics, one in, we're in Louisiana in the US. Our clinics are about 3 hours apart. And I stay in Metairie. My husband is the one going back and forth. I did that for a couple of years, and I had to say no more. So the kids and I are stationed in outside of New Orleans, and then he goes back and forth. So I spend the bulk of my time handling all the operational, marketing, sales, scaling, not scaling aspects of our business, while he is helping people optimize their health, reverse their age, and stimulate the body's own natural healing processes.
Sounds like a very good mix. The two of you seem to have bridged the differences between what each one of you does. And I'm sure you got lots to tell us about how you relax, how you rejuvenate, and how you focus frazzled nerves.
I really do.
Yeah, I think each one of our panelists tonight really is an expert in their own right. And because we all offer such different aspects of entrepreneurship, I think that our viewers are going to hear some interesting stories. I'm Sue Rumack. I am a life coach. I am an overwhelmed strategist. I am an empath trainer. And like everybody else here, I've also written some books and done a bunch of videos and have stuff on YouTube and work with people all over the world in all types of different time zones. I started off as a life coach, just a life coach. And then over time, went through transformations through being a change management coach, being a transformational coach, becoming the empath trainer who basically works with highly sensitive people. And Cortney's going to appreciate this because highly empathic people are also very at risk for somatic dysregulation. So we are quite familiar, each of us, with the somatics of brain science, and on my side, also the spirituality of it. I would love to talk more about myself, but I think we've got a really good topic to go on tonight. So all of my information, all of our panelists' information is going to be in the chat at the end of this conversation. And we're going to jump right into our topic right now. So our topic is, how do busy entrepreneurs relax, rejuvenate, and focus frazzled nerves? I think what we're going to do is, instead of starting from the back when you were younger and less frazzled, let's kind of start with where you are right now, wherever you are in your life, because I can see we're all at different age ranges, which is wonderful and development of our own personal lives. So where are you now when it comes to your level of stress? And you don't have to give the whole story, but give us an idea of where your your frazzledness, like what are you so involved in right now that could put you right at the edge of frazzledness, where you do need to rejuvenate? And then maybe gives a really quick timeline back to what you did, how you managed that when you were younger, and what the differences are. And we'll just keep talking it through and see what happens with this conversation. Who am I going to start? Who would like to start? Who would like to jump in first? Jackie, go ahead.
The mute button. It's the power of the mute button. All right. So that's like having the buzzer on a game show.
It is.
So where am I now? I use it all. I mean, I certify conscious transformational coaches, and we use the somatic connections. We actually create what we call pause buttons or stress interrupters using physiology. So I use my own tools from my coaching. But more importantly, I start with where I started back in the beginning. Take a deep breath. If people would do that more often, they could actually get out of fight or flight. But before I learned that, to answer your other question, Sue, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn are the 4 F's that people talk about when it comes to stress. There's a 5th one. It's called faint. And that's what I used to do. I would just curl up and sleep, and the house could burn down around me. And that was my go-to coping mechanism until depression caught up with me. Because you can't stay in that physical position very long without the emotional following it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, from there to now, the journey's worthwhile. And for me, stress intervention technique number 1 is still take a deep breath. Take that moment for yourself. So that's my simplest answer to your very complex question.
I like the way you phrased that. Thank you. Actually, I do agree with you. I think that for myself, and because we are in a similar generation, though I may be a little senior to you, I'm not sure. It doesn't really matter. But I think in our generational span, there were no tools for when we became really frazzled at all. And basically, women would either drink, smoke, go out with their girlfriends for coffee, do the coffee clutch in the morning, and just find that kind of community place to de-stress their frazzled nerves. That didn't work for me because I was a working mom from the time I was 21, and I had a baby on my hip, and talking to a client on the phone who was melting down, and the baby was throwing up. And I go, excuse me, Mrs. So-and-so, but could I call you back after I clean up the vomit and I'll get right back to you? Which may not have sounded the most professional, but everybody knew we worked from our homes. For me, back then, there was no place for me to relax, rejuvenate, because I was always frazzled. I was always stressed between the two worlds of being the mom, the wife, and the entrepreneur. I ran my husband's business. He was a photographer. So there's a lot of social interaction between us and our clients. And I was the one that did it because I was the more social person. Over time, as I became my own entrepreneur, doing my own businesses, and the kids obviously grew up, I think that I was predisposed to not stop and take that breath that you were just talking about, Jackie. I don't think I did that. I don't think I ever did that. Actually, I think there was 7 years where I didn't.
It's a learned skill. Unless somebody studies yoga or some other breath-oriented work, it's very much a learned skill, Sue. So let yourself off the hook. Though I'll be honest, with everybody's bios, I want to know what they think of, what their stories are, because I'm sure I'm going to learn something new.
I think we're going to move on to somebody else's story. But I do want to add that in the meantime, I have learned how to breathe. And it has made a tremendous difference to my health, my well-being, my mental state, and all the rest of it. So interesting. A pop-up just came up on my computer that says pause breath work. Lovely. Okay. So Lisa, could we move on to you then? Answering that same question. Where are you now when it comes to managing those frazzled nerves? And how could you compare it back in time to an earlier time in your life?
Well, I will tell you right now, I don't have stress in my life. I cannot get to the point where I won't get to the point where I have stress in my life. And it's because my lifelong lesson has been burnout. It's been push myself to the point of burnout. So I did that in my job where I got sick and, autoimmune conditions, et cetera. Started my business as I was working and quit my job to do my business full time, went in full force, pushed myself, hit burnout again. It was like a continuous lesson for me to stop and surrender. And I remember the first time that happened, it was like 2018. And I just heard these words like allow and receive. I'm like, what in the heck does that mean? And it's been a 5-year, 6-year journey of me realizing what allow and receive means. And in listening to my higher guidance, in following the path of not pushing, of allowing and receiving, I have been able to let go of the attachment to the outcome, let go of trying to control and figure out how things are done. It doesn't mean that I don't take action. It doesn't mean that I don't do things, but it means that I'm not spinning in my, I work with people that are stuck in their trauma looping patterns and living from that space, because that's where I would go. If it was, if it didn't feel up and fun and super triggering, it just it wasn't a thing. And so I've had to learn to unravel my nerves, my nervous system, and relax and live from a place of surrender and no stress. And I will never go back to pushing. Never.
I felt your whole soul with that one. Never. Yeah.
Never. Yeah. And so setting boundaries was really something that I had to learn when I burnt out in 2018, because I would get up, clients were in South Africa. I would get up at, whatever time in the morning, they were over in wherever they were, I would make time for them. And that just, so boundaries were something that I had to learn in many areas of my life and in business that was really apparent.
And I'm thinking that a lot of the people who are going to be watching this event, this panel, are entrepreneurs as well, who are very driven to being successful and making what they do count for themselves and for also definitely for their clients as well. Thank you, Lisa. That was really, really important. An important share. You showed us the other side of what to do to rejuvenate.
Yeah.
You just talked about rejuvenation. Thank you. Cortney, your turn. How about where you're at with this whole idea of where are you now when it comes to managing your own frazzledness? And where were you at an earlier time in your life? Is there a difference?
Interesting. So I think right now, breath was the first thing that came to my mind also. Like the first thing that I do if I'm feeling like actively, like acutely in stress is to take a deep breath, to pause, to just remember like it's just a moment, it's not forever, and probably it's not actually this important. Like, I mean, really, it's probably not. Like this afternoon, I was a little frazzled because I was trying to fit a client in, and it's a particular case. It's not my normal. It's somebody who's been bedridden for the last 3 years, and I need to be there when the physical therapist is there to meet them and all the things to co-work together. Just get her notes essentially. And I was like at a point I was like, you know what? Like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And because I can't do everything, and I'm trying to jump through hoops for this person, but it's like, do I want to help them? Yeah, I want to help them. But at the same time, I have 3 kids, one of which is home because he's a toddler, and it's been a real rough week with him. And so I was like, you know what? It's actually, it's not, maybe it won't happen this week. Maybe it'll happen next week. But the other thing for me is what I really needed to do was stop procrastinating and living in fear and lack, and just call a couple people who I knew who could be babysitters and just be like, okay, I'm going to pay them. Like, that's it. I'm just like, I got to find somebody, then I'm going to fork half of my income to, or whatever. And who I trust and is going to be great. And I just have to do it, So I think like pausing, breathing, putting it into perspective, like chances are like it's not the end of the world, no matter what it is. And then, for me, at least, not procrastinating on stuff, because that just makes things 10 million times worse. And I definitely used to procrastinate a lot more. And, to be real, like I wouldn't say it was my go-to, because I always have gone to food, like nourishing food and exercise as also de-stressors, and just, healthy supplementation, whatever I need to fill in my gaps. That's always been a constant. But I will say, like, when my husband and I were having a hard time in our relationship, when I was dealing with, Lyme's disease or coming out of it, which was a long time, it was like 5 years. And I just really felt bad about myself. Glass or 2 of wine at night was like, this is how I'm going to handle this. Like, this is how I'm going to handle it. Like I can handle cooking dinner with 2 kids, tugging on my legs with a glass of wine, because you know what? That was my gateway to like, it's all good. It doesn't really matter that much. Like, not that the things matter, feeding the children matters and all of that. But like in the grand scheme of things, the noise doesn't matter. The mess doesn't matter. It's fine. And now I can really get there more with mindset and breath and just pausing. But, but yeah, never Valium, because that's not my generation. I saw that comment earlier. Totally. I mean, how else were you supposed to deal with it back then? But yeah. I would say a glass or 2 of wine a night was the way I dealt with it most of the time, even if I was exercising regularly, which is hard to do when you have Lyme's disease.
Can only imagine. It sounds like you had a lot to deal with, and you managed those frazzled nerves. You found your way, and I think that each person does find their own way through it. There isn't a playbook. You can't leaf through a whole bunch of pages, go, oh yeah, that's the one for me, because it's also personal and so perspective driven, as Jackie put into our chat. So yeah, thank you, Courtney. That was a big, big share and much appreciated. LeNae, now we come to you, and the question again is, where are you now when it comes to managing frazzled nerves? And you've talked about you and your husband splitting the business, so he is doing all the traveling. You're located in one place, and you've got a bunch of kids, and you're managing the home aspect, the kids aspect, the business aspect, and he's doing the front house. He's doing front of house, and you're doing everything else from the sounds of it. So you must
Right.
have a few frazzled nerves once in a while.
Actually, I have to be honest, that word frazzled doesn't really resonate with me, but I
What
do
does?
have high
Which
stress. The word
high stress?
stress and intense stress does resonate. Only because frazzled in my brain, when I hear that word, I'm thinking of threads that are like coming apart. And I don't think at any time I've ever really come apart. But I am probably very rigid, and a lot of my stress is probably self-brought on from expectations that are not met and imposed upon others. And so, and I think for me specifically, I have to be aware of that. So awareness is key. When I feel like I'm getting into a stressful situation or angst or annoyed, I really have to tune in and evaluate from kind of like the meta perspective, the observer of the situation outside of myself, to really understand, what is this? Why am I reacting the way that I'm reacting? What is causing that reaction? Breath, of course, first go to deep breath in, deep breath out, because you've got to have that centering experience in order to get to that observer perspective and evaluate what's happening in the moment, whether it's a situation, traffic, employees, husband, saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, which invariably happens. And then looking at it as information. It's just information. As Courtney said, it's not, if it's not urgent and important, if it's not important but not urgent, it might be neither urgent nor important. And so categorizing those issues into that parameter is also very helpful. And then, as I think it was Lisa said, boundaries. I'm big on boundaries, because when you're self-employed, you don't clock out. Like, the employees have the luxury of clocking out and going on to the rest of their day. Whereas when you're a business owner, you don't have that luxury. And it's very easy to 24/7 constantly running, scenarios in your mind about how to fix things, how to do things, how to do this, all the things you've got to do. And so I had to put boundaries in place. I did that several years ago. I don't talk shop after 11 o'clock. And actually here recently, I'm like, 9 o'clock, I'm done. Nothing is going to happen now that cannot wait until in the morning. So boundaries, breathing, awareness, all those are very helpful. And I will tell you, we pivoted our business in 2012. There was kind of a catalyst moment that happened that was probably the height of more stress than I'd ever realized in my life. And my kids were young at the time. And Lisa might have had 2 bottles, or 2 glasses. I was going through 2 bottles, and that was how I was coping. And it was that going to the dark place of the soul, where I was actually contemplating dealing with stress by taking it out on the people I was blaming at the moment for causing my situation, right? Because in that life experience, it was happening to me. I've now realized it was happening for me, but was not so enlightened in the moment. And I really wanted to take it out on some people. And so luckily I didn't. I would have ended up in jail. But, having that kind of experience wasn't very, wasn't very enjoyable at the time, but it was necessary to kind of knock my hard head against the wall and wake up to living a more enlightened and proactive and creator, being the creator of my reality instead of the victim of my reality. So that was a very circuitous response to that question. I apologize.
No, actually, it was actually the perfect response to that question, because a lot of what you just offered spans a lot of what our viewers are going through. It might not speak to just one type of viewer, but different aspects of many different viewers. So, and everybody that has responded to this question has brought a different perspective to the lives that our viewers are watching. And that's really what we're talking about, is the lives that our viewers are watching. How does what we share resonate with them and give them a little piece of their puzzle? LeNae, you really did touch on so many pieces of the puzzle that our viewers are going to be going through. So what I really liked was you said that you what I'm hearing is there was not so much of the spiritual piece, but you need structure in order to manage that time of your life, and you need it just as much, if not more, now that you've got a bigger life. Even so, Courtney says she resonated with that as well a lot. So yeah, I think that when you talk about boundaries, I'm going to ask you the next question. If you were going to give some pithy advice, but actually giving people not just a big picture, could you go a little bit deeper and tell people a little bit more about the boundaries that you set up? I know you told us about we don't talk shop after 11 o'clock, now 9 o'clock at night. What other boundaries did you set up to keep the stress under control?
Well, I mean, boundaries apply to all aspects. I'm very conscious of what I watch, what I listen to. So media, information, there's a boundary on that for sure. Because a lot of what we're inundated with in the media and the news and on the radio, like all that actually can increase stress. Especially if you're a fixer, because you want to fix everything. But most of the things we hear, if it's true, is without our purview to really fix out, because it's outside of ourselves. So boundaries with respect to that, boundaries in relationships. I'm very particular about where I spend my energy. If somebody is not going to bring me joy or, and this is really hard to do, but even in familial relationships, if those relationships are not serving, if they create guilt and shame and lack and heaviness, those relationships need to, go away. So boundaries with respect to relationships are very important. And, it really gets down to self-care and self-love. I'm a firm believer that boundaries are vital for self-care and self-love. In addition to the work things and what happens there, but being very mindful of where we're spending our energy and who we're giving our energy to is probably step number one in putting up those boundaries.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. You were the right person to ask. You made it very, very compact and valuable for anybody that's watching. Lisa, you spoke to just super, what was it? I wrote it down and now I can't read it. Actually, you did. You spoke to de-stressors. That was your big message, was managing stress. So if you were going to speak to or educate our viewers about de-stressing, you took yourself from a place of burnout to a place of calm. And that is your go-to now. So how would you suggest people start with looking at the stressors in their lives so that they can begin to scale back on some of them?
Well, I think, we have patterns that we follow. And when we become aware of the patterns that continue in our lives, that's where we get to start to change things. So for example, if you have a pattern of wanting to please everybody because you want to, because that makes you feel good enough or whatever that is, then you're going to be carrying the burden and saying yes to things that you don't necessarily, that aren't for you to do, that aren't honoring yourself. And so you are expending your energy, and then you're going into resentment, and it just kind of snowballs from there. So what is self-honoring? How can you honor yourself? And it goes back to boundaries too. So I think looking at ways to de-stress are becoming aware of actually how you're living and what your patterns are. So if you're a people pleaser, if you're a perfectionist, if you're a procrastinator, if you're any of these labels, really kind of look at that and understand how you can shift and instead really honor yourself. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's
sense.
To me, that has been really super important to me, is honoring myself in a place of, does this feel good to me? Is this what I want? Like, I remember not even ever asking myself the question, what do I want? And when I first asked that, I was like, wow, I get to answer that. What do I want? And when you answer that question for yourself, you may have a huge breakthrough about what you're doing that is not in alignment with what you truly want and who you're here to be, honestly. And so really figuring out your path and being in alignment with your path, with your highest path, for what you're here to do. And the best way to do that is what brings you joy. I truly believe that joy is our true north. If we follow joy, then the stressors can kind of fall away.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That's another really good piece of the puzzle. I feel like we've got this puzzle that's got maybe 8 to 12 pieces in it. We've got 4 people commenting. So with each question, you're filling in another chunk of the puzzle. Jackie just put into the chat, not so enlightened in the moment. Best quote of the day so far. So Jackie, I think maybe that's where I was going to ask you about how we can use the trauma in our lives to learn how to rejuvenate, but I'd somehow like to bring that quote that you just put into the chat in as well.
Well, I'm not the one who said it. LeNae said it. So
I'm sorry, I missed that.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry, I missed
I'm
that.
the first to acknowledge when I'm not being enlightened.
Yeah. So it was just
Okay.
beautifully said. So I just didn't put her name with it. My apologies, LeNae. I didn't give you proper attribution. So the reality is that we all have moments where we're not so enlightened. And there's such a thing that I've seen that I've put a label on. I don't usually label things, but spiritual snobbery came to my mind. And it's the people who believe they are so far advanced that it's not possible for them to have a not so enlightened moment. And yet the people around them can see it. And then they go into imposter syndrome, which we were actually chit-chatting about earlier. So the power of this conversation is so relevant because the world is waking up faster and faster and faster as more and more light is coming in. Someone said Pluto's in Aquarius, or I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but apparently it means change is coming even faster. And I'm like, okay, fine. Like, I can handle much faster. And the answer is, I guess I can. So what I wanted to touch back on is that there's something about this. I want to relate it back to business. When it comes to coming out of the frazzledness, coming out of the stress, one of the places to set boundaries, I believe, is super simple and super educational for our children. And it's on social media. And it's if you're doing social media messaging for marketing and somebody's not responded to 2 messages in a row and you've never had a conversation with them, unfriend them and make room for someone else. It won't hurt their feelings. They're not engaging with you. And it sets a precedent for, I want to play with the people who want to play with me. And for an entrepreneur, that saves so much time and aggravation because I stopped chasing people who didn't want what I was offering. And so it saved me a lot of time and I made a lot more money this way. But what it teaches our kids is that it's okay to unfriend people. It teaches a confidence that I can choose who I'm friends with. And confident kids don't bully and they don't get bullied. And so I see it as teaching confidence in a way, if we allow our kids to see how we're handling our friends, our family, as what you were talking about earlier, but also on our social media accounts. If we be transparent and let them see that how we set boundaries that don't insult anybody. They just acknowledge the people's non-interest in what we're talking about. Wouldn't that help? And that's what I think will dial down a lot of drama and a lot of stress, especially for the entrepreneurs who are trying to manage kids and businesses. What if you just let them see how you're setting boundaries in your business and they can apply it to setting boundaries in their lives as well?
I'm so glad that you brought this piece into it, because our kids, our teenage kids, our young adult kids, our tweenie kids, do create a lot of stress in our lovely, wonderful, we love our kids, stress in our lives. We do. It's not a love-hate relationship. It really is a love.
They come with drama.
A
Nobody
love
told
drama
me that when
relationship.
I was pregnant, before I had kids, that kids come with drama. It's just part of their DNA.
It is, but it also affects the stress levels in the entire family and our ability to relax 24 hours a day. Because when we've got kids, you really can't relax very much, especially when they're young. But I love what you.
Sue, can I push back on you for just a second for the absolute word that you put into that sentence?
By all means, go ahead. I'm waiting.
You may not have heard yourself say that when we have these kids, we can't relax. And I'm not sure that's the word that my word would be. When we have these kids, we have to up level our skills to be able to relax.
Okay.
Or maybe we already have enough skills. I think there are some people who are able to relax in any setting. And that's something I am aspiring to. I am not there yet. And I have been very challenged with sudden trips for screen tests and all the stuff that go with the stuff.
Oh, it sounds like it's going well.
So far, so good. And so, yeah, my special request is going to be vote for me to be on the show because it's becoming a thing.
It is. I like what you said is that you pushed back on me. And I can't speak for all people who have children. I can only speak for myself. And the moment that I became pregnant, that child became my total responsibility for the rest of its life and mine. And I've got a daughter who's 51. I've got another daughter who's 44, and they're assorted children and they're assorted spouses. So I've assumed all of that's all within my realm of stress. But I accepted it because I chose to. So that's enough about me. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. That's the key. We get to choose what we take on.
Yes, we do. You're welcome. I think that your point is perfectly taken, and we do need to learn how to show our children how to pull back and create boundaries around the people that we allow into our lives and unfriend those who don't serve our health and our stress and our wellness and all the rest of that. And now it's time to go on to Cortney. Okay, Cortney, I think we're going to ask you about super triggers, super duper triggers. And how you, triggers for how we, let's talk about triggers for how we rejuvenate rather than triggers for what gets us stuck. Let's talk about triggers for how we rejuvenate.
Like when we're in stress, how do we get out of it?
Yeah. Or when we can't relax.
So going back many years now, I used to work in cardiac rehabilitation, which is after you have a heart attack or something like that, you end up, going to this 3 times a week, usually exercise program. And of course, we did a little bit of nutrition counseling, which was terrible.
Oh, dear.
Not what I would ever recommend to my client, but that was out of my control. And then, sorry, my husband's calling. He's probably not paying attention to what's on the calendar. But we also had to teach stress management classes, and we broke it up into acute stress and chronic stress. Like the chronic stress, the things outside of us that make us upset all the time, every day, and then like the little stresses. And then we broke that into like a good stress and a bad stress, like cheering your kids and grandkids on at their basketball games and football games and events and stuff like that. That's very, very stressful, but it's a good stress. It's a short period of time, and then you move on and you get all the happy hormones, you know, versus a negative stress where, I don't know, I don't want to say anything that could manifest while I'm on the road here.
No manifestation.
Your dishwasher breaks and you're in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner or something like that. That's very, very stressful. So we actually had, which this was a great part of the program, is we actually had little, you could cut it out into like little deck card size pieces of little things that you could do, especially if you were with a partner or something like that. So like, you're in stress. Okay, you've noticed that you've been triggered. You're in stress. Now, what is a trigger way to get you out of it? So what is a tool? That's an easier way for me to understand it. What's a tool for you to get out of this stressful situation? And a lot of times it was like, hey, I know we're in this argument, we're having this talk, but I'm feeling really like frustrated and angry right now. I just need to go for a walk or step into the other room. Don't just walk into the other room, because that's real tough on the other person. But just say I can't handle this right now. I need a moment. Or, you know, taking those deep breaths, being like, okay, we're in this tough conversation. Just give me a second. I just need to breathe because I've noticed that I'm feeling lightheaded. Gosh, what else was there? I mean, there's so many things, and it's so funny. I think I'm not used to talking about getting out of stress with a trigger. To me, that's how you get into stress. So for me, it's like, what are the tools that can pop us back out again? I guess a dance party is always good.
A dance party. I love that.
Always good. I mean, like when I have friends, you know, because my kids are younger still, and so most of my friends' kids are younger still, and they're like, oh, I never get to. Oh, I like, you know, to speak to what the conversation just was a second ago. I can never relax. I can never do this, or I can't do that, or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, why don't you put on some music and have a dance party? The kids can do it with you. And so now you're getting a lot of those chemicals, hormones, all the energy out of your physical body, out of your head, out of your mind. And your kids are walking alongside you with it. So to Jackie's point, now you're bringing in the children to how you're processing things and the tools that you're using, and you're teaching the next generation how to manage those sorts of things. For me, I always I remember even as a teenager, like if I was really upset about something, which of course as a teenager and as a girl happens a lot. I was a runner, not a great runner, but I was a runner. I was on track and cross country, and if I was ever on a team sport with a ball, I was always in the position that had to run the most and touch the ball the least. But just, but I would go for a run, and for somebody else that might again still be a dance, or it might be a yoga class, or it might be something else, but I would always go and do like exercise. And for me, it was also very isolating. So I remember LeNae was saying, like, you wanted to take out your anger and frustration on those other people. Well, you can't do that if you're running by yourself. You actually have to be by yourself, and you have to process it. And it doesn't have to be a run. It could just be a walk, like I mentioned earlier. But for me, that was something that was huge. And then I also want to circle back around to something that I said just real quickly before, is eating and drinking. Because I think that a lot of us get into really stressful situations because we're not well hydrated, which means that maybe we have a headache, which makes us trigger happy on our stressors, or we're not eating particularly well, or we're just straight up eating poorly. If we're straight up eating poorly with, chemicals and colors and all of those sorts of things in our foods, and we're not eating fruits and vegetables and quality proteins and all that sort of stuff, or we're eating stuff and like we have a low grade stomachache, we don't even know it, but it just makes us super pissy.
Yeah. Oh, I know that one.
Right. You don't even know it, and it's there. Is just becoming more aware and more mindful of your eating habits for those chronic stresses, and for the acute ones, like maybe your switch just flipped and you realize that, like, hey, I'm not doing intermittent fasting, but I haven't eaten for 16 hours,
Oh my God.
and then
Yes.
going and feeding yourself and hydrating yourself, because as much as the spiritual, mental, emotional is so super important, we can't leave out the physical, because we are still physical. Like, we have to take care of our physical being, and as much emotional and mental and spiritual stuff as we do, if we completely ignore to take care of our vessel, we're out for the count. So yeah, I would say moving your body, taking those deep breaths, and nourishment, and sometimes isolation, because sometimes that's just, you need to just be alone. Just
And
alone.
dancing.
Yes.
To the
Yes.
music.
Well, I mean, the dancing, there's the physical movement, but the dancing, I think, is like the one that you can really let loose, and you can do it with other
Yeah.
people, and
Yeah.
like, just warm up first, because one time I like popped something and it hurt real bad. Just putting that out.
I'm really glad that, I know I surprised you with that question, but you really stepped up to it. Thank you. You found us the positive triggers. Thank you. Jackie,
thank you.
You're very welcome. Jackie put in the chat, moving big muscles is a caveman tested way of resetting. I love that. So we have come to the magical part of our conversation. This is where each of our experts gets to share what they are giving as a gift or offering as a program or a course to our viewers. So I think we're going to start with LeNae. LeNae, what would you like to offer our viewers tonight, this afternoon, this morning, whatever time zone they're in?
Sure. So I have two things. So they can either go to yourinfinitehealth.com and schedule a complimentary consultation, or they can go to that same website and request our free book, which is Think and Live Longer. It's a 12-chapter guided experiential mind-body. It's the mind-body pillar of our practice that all patients are required to read. It works really well for anybody, anywhere, to supplement whatever their goals are for their health or relationships or whatever. And so they just need to reach out to me through the website at yourinfinitehealth.com. Let me know that they would like that book, and I will send it out to them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Cortney, what are you offering our viewers tonight?
Ooh, I would love to offer anybody who's interested a free consultation. I think the links are going to be given out to everybody, but you can email me at hudsonvalleypeakperformance@gmail.com. And I am launching April 10th specifically a group personal training program for women in business that I'm super excited about, because I just absolutely love to hear all of the ideas that come out, and I love the struggles too, because that's really what sparks the ideas. And I really love in the beginning of each session, which is it's warm up, it's exercise, it's cool down, it's somatic meditation. So it follows like your regular personal training style session, which also allows me to give you modifications and all and check your form and everything. But I also created, so like during the warm up, we go around circle time and we ask what your success was for the week or for the day or for the day before, and we all get to celebrate that, and that is just so like heartwarming. And then we get to dig into business or life or whatever you're stuck on in the moment. And you have the feedback, not just from me, because it's not just about me, but you have the feedback from every other woman in the Zoom room who has, like just like this group has pieces to the puzzle. So I love the camaraderie of it, and I love the ideas that come from it. And it's just such a really wonderful time. So that's launching April 10th, and we meet twice weekly for an hour to go and get our movement on, de-stress, and ping pong ideas back and forth, which is just so super fun. And of course, celebrate each other, which is always awesome.
And does Sophia have your link for that sign up?
You know what? That one is actually new, so I'm going to have to skedaddle and get that to her ASAP.
That'd be great. That'd be amazing.
I just made that one.
Please
Yeah.
do that. Okay, wonderful,
Beautiful.
wonderful gift. Lisa, what would you like to give our beautiful viewers this evening?
Well, I normally work with transformational leaders who feel lost or impatient, maybe stuck at a plateau, and they want to accelerate their results. So what I do is I help them to end the looping patterns of their trauma, living from their trauma response, so that they can really embody who they're here to be and step into their full magnificence in a way that is leading with pleasure and playfulness and ease. So not burnout and not pushing like we've been talking about.
Right.
So if that sounds interesting, then I would love to invite people to a complimentary Rise Up call. And this is where you'll just gain clarity on like where you are and looking at your next steps forward to see how you can accelerate that. And I'll put the link and everything in the chat.
That'd be fantastic. And I know that from talking to you personally, you are such a calming influence and such a gentle soul that anybody talking to you on one of your discovery calls would come away feeling very calm and supported and loved. So
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Sue.
You're welcome. Jackie, it's your turn. I know you've got
All
stuff
right.
to tell us, amazing stuff to tell us.
My link is always Teen Suicide Prevention Society.com. My gift is the talk that saves lives, the talk you have before you think someone needs it. We know from experience, you can't tell by looking who's struggling.
Yeah.
And so what if you just assume they're struggling and use this invitation to invite them to a talk that's not about them, so your kids don't roll their eyes and your friends don't feel insulted that you think they're in trouble. So that's what we designed, and that's for free. If you think somebody's struggling and it's not 911 level, we also have the Why Not Workbook and the Song Before You Decide. They're all on the website. But here's my real gift tonight. In the top right-hand corner is something called Positivity Power-Ups. These are neuroscience-based vision boards on steroids that have been scientifically validated to put your brain in flow state, to improve your mood and attitude for 6 to 8 hours, watching for only 3 minutes. And there are 3 different sessions people can access for free. And these are the people who are part of the show, the Changemakers Prize that I've been nominated to be on. So I'm also a co-creator with them. So you'll find my session. Mine is, of course, labeled Leaving Shouldville. So you stop shoulding on yourself and others. So,
love it.
Lots of fun there. And if you download the guide for the talk, that counts as a vote for us to be on the show. And then read it, because when you read it, you're positively priming your brain. You're actually shifting your brain into a more positive state, building out what we call a file folder labeled Reasons for Staying. And then have the talk with someone else. Practice it with someone. You don't know whose heart you'll touch, and you may never know whose life you'll save. So thank you very much.
That was very, very powerful. I hope, and I am recommending that anybody who is watching this live, anybody who is watching this on the replay at any point in time, find Jackie and absolutely follow her instructions, because they may be life-saving for yourself. They may be life-saving for somebody you care about. They may be life-saving for somebody you don't even know. So I highly recommend what Jackie is asking you to do. Thank you, Jackie. Well done. Okay. So my gift for everybody tonight, I get to give a gift to, is, of course, as always, a discovery call that's around 60 to 90 minutes, and you end up getting your life blueprint next steps based on what it is that you need to move forward in your life. I'm an overwhelm strategist and an empath trainer. Our current program at the moment, which is actually launching with masterclasses, with a masterclass series on April I think the 17th, is called Calm the Overwhelm. And over the next 2 weeks, Jackie's smiling, Calm the Overwhelm. And over the next 2 weeks, there will be 7 Zoom calls that will be for free, where we talk about different aspects of calm and how it affects different people in different professions. And the links to that will be in the chat or in the notes once this is up for everybody to see publicly. So I'm hoping that you'll check into our Zoom calls, Calm the Overwhelm. And then if so inspired, join our masterclass. It starts April the 17th, runs for 9 weeks. There are 9 modules, and it will absolutely move you from overwhelm to calm. And I'm not going to sell it any more than that. So we will talk again in the future. Now we come to the part of sacredyou.love, who is the sponsor of these wonderful panel conversations. Sacredyou.love is a community of incredibly wonderful, talented people in all walks of life, offering their services, sometimes spiritual, sometimes psychological, sometimes, as Jackie does, life-saving, and somatic and physical, as LeNae's family does, physical training, and trauma-based. And there are, at least at this moment, at least 21 tribes and growing of interest groups, and where people can join and take part in at no additional cost. It basically, if you're interested in more panel discussions like this, in hearing more from Lisa and from LeNae and from Cortney and from Jackie and from myself, I would encourage you to go to Sacred You, that's you, as in the letter U, .love, and join for $1 Australian. That gives you 3 weeks of access to all of our wonderful programs, conversations, tribe meetings, anything that interests you, you can pop into at no charge. And if you absolutely love sacredyou.love, then you can join for $15 Australian a month. That's less than a cup of coffee and a nice piece of pastry. And you'll get your soul fed for a whole month at a time. So I think that brings us to the end, unless Sophia is able to join us. I don't think she can, but as I said, if you're interested in hearing more of these conversations, if you're interested in taking part in these conversations, then please absolutely do check out sacredyou.love. Now, I know that Lisa is one of our tribe leaders, and if she has a moment that she could spare to tell us about her tribe, I'm also a tribe leader, and I would love to tell you about my tribe. So please, Lisa, tell us about your tribe.
Sure. Yeah, so I co-host the Magical Playground, and it is a tribe where we do intuitive art, and we have a lot of fun. We start with usually a meditation and a vision. We do visioning, and then we do an intuitive art process. And we've done everything from kintsugi, which is the Japanese art of breaking something and gluing it back together and seeing the imperfections. We did that for self-love in February. Right now we're doing neurographica, which is a way of setting an intention or making a decision or resolving a conflict through art. And so we have a lot of different things planned, but it's really fascinating. So that would be awesome if you want to join us. To have you.
Actually, I've taken part in some of Lisa's Magical Playground sessions. They are so much fun. Honestly, just like girlfriends sitting around a table with a whole bunch of arts and crafts stuff on the table, but directed in a very specific way, and so gently and so lovely, with lots of giggles. And I think I saw some glasses of wine on the table at one point as well. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
You know what? Life is too serious. We just need to have fun.
Absolutely. My tribe is called Life Force Activators, and we are all about finding the vibrancy and the joy in basically enhancing the life that we already have. A lot of people have kind of gotten dumbed down over the past couple of years with all the stuff that goes on in the world, and they kind of forget that they've got this vibrancy that they were born with, this vibrancy that they had as children, and we're bringing that vibrancy out. We talk about spiritual things, we talk about unspiritual things, we talk about life experiences, we've talked about out of body astral travel, we've talked about angels, guides, and guardians, we've talked about all kinds of wonderful things. I encourage people to bring their experience, their stories, their humor, their fun, and we just wake up again together. We meet once every second Tuesday, and to find out more about us, you'll have to go to, guess where, sacredu.love. So I think we have come to the point where we are going to give hugs and kisses to all of our wonderful panelists. Thank you for being with us. And hopefully you will join us all again at another time. I'm going to end our conversation right now, unless anybody has something that they would like to add. Anybody got final words? Everybody's good? Okay, I'm good too. I can stop talking now. See you next time on Inspire, Innovate, and Ignite. I can never remember the three I's all in a row. Inspire, Innovate, and Ignite. Conversations that count. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we will see you next time.